distinguished Head of the Department of Language Education, Dr. Muhammad Hasbullah Isnaini, our Honorable Speaker, Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan from the Faculty of Education, Universiti Teknologi Mara, Malaysia, lecturers of Study Program of English Language Education, students of Brawijaya University and UiTM, welcome to the Visiting Lecture Program. My name is Astrid Eva, and I'm honored to lead this special occasion. To begin today's session, I would like to invite the head of the Department of Language Education, Dr. Muhammad Hasbullah Isnaini, to deliver the opening remarks. Please welcome Dr. Muhammad Hasbullah Isnaini. Please, sir, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Astrid. Okay, good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and students. It is great honor and privilege on behalf of Department of Language Education, Faculty of Cultural Studies, Brawijaya University, to extend my warmest welcome to all participants of this visiting lecture entitled AI-Enhanced Reading Pedagogy, Strategies for EFL Educators. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan, who has already been available for us to give lecture for today's session. Okay, we are deeply honored and to have with us Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan from University of Technology of Mara, respected scholars whose work in educational technology and language pedagogy continues to inspire educators across the region. And I believe that her presence today will bring, a new knowledge for students in Brawijaya University. Her presence today enriches our academic community and provides us with a valuable opportunity to explore the intersections of artificial intelligence and language education. In this era of rapid technology advancement, the integrations of AI into reading pedagogy signifies not only innovation, but also a transformation in
Excuse me, Mr. Hasbullah, I think you're muted.
Yes, sorry.
You are muted, Papa.
Oh, from the beginning?
In the middle, I think.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. I think someone's muted me. Okay, right. So we are deeply honored to have with us today, Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan from University Teknologi Mara, a respected scholar whose work in educational technology and language pedagogy continues to inspire educators across the region. Her presence here today enriches our academic community and provide us with valuable opportunity to explore the intersections of artificial intelligence and language education. In this era of rapid technological advancement, the integrations of AI into reading pedagogy signifies not only innovation, but also a transformation in how we envision the future of EFL teaching and learning. Through today's lecture, I hope we will gain new insights, exchange meaningful ideas, and reaffirm our shared commitment to advancing excellence in language education. Once again, I extend my sincere appreciation to Dr. Narayanan for sharing her expertise with us and to all participants for being part of this academic endeavor. Thank you, and I wish you a stimulating and insightful session with Dr. Narayanan. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Hasbullah Isnaini, for the warm and encouraging remarks. Now we will proceed to the main agenda, which is the lecture session. Today's session is entitled AI-Enhanced Reading Pedagogy, Strategies for Future EFL Educators, delivered by our fabulous speaker, Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan from the Faculty of Education, Universiti Teknologi Mara, UiTM, Malaysia. But before we begin, please allow me to introduce her briefly. Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan is a lecturer at the Faculty of Education, Universiti Teknologi Mara, with extensive experience teacher education, language testing, and pedagogical innovation. She is widely recognized for her contributions to English language education and assessment in Malaysia. Her research spans language testing, writing development, critical thinking, and STEM education, and she has published numerous works in reputable international and Scopus indexed journals. Dr. Geethanjali is also actively involved in postgraduate supervision, academic consultancy, and international collaboration, frequently serving as a keynote speaker, trainer, and examiner for institutions across Southeast Asia and India. Her works continues to strengthen evidence-based teaching, responsible assessment practices, and the professional growth for our future educators. Without any further ado, Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan, please, time is yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Madam MC. Very good afternoon to Dr. Muhammad Hasbullah, the head of department, to the lecturer, Dr. Wayudini, and the rest of the faculty members as well as students both from Indonesia and Malaysia. A very, very good afternoon to everyone, and I hope the next 2 hours will be a fruitful session, and there's a chance of us to exchange our ideas here. All right. Okay, so let me share the screen first. So this is the title of today's session, which is AI-Enhanced Reading Pedagogy, Strategies for Future EFL Educators. All right, so as you have heard from the MC just now, I'm actually from the Department of Teaching English as a Second Language. I'm a senior lecturer there at the Faculty of Education, Universiti Teknologi Mara, Malaysia. Okay, so let's go on to see what I have in store for us today. Right, this is the overview. We'll look at the approaches and a little bit on the theory, not so much. I know, it can get a bit too dry. And then we'll look at the strategies, right? What kind of strategies as teachers we can teach the students, right? Then we'll go into the bigger picture where we will look at the stages in a lesson, in a reading lesson. And then we will look at how the digital tools and AI can help us, what roles it has in our classroom. All right, from the teaching aspect, from designing materials and assessment. Then we'll have an activity. All right. You can stop me at any time, preferably if you can type your questions on the chat. All right, if you have any questions. If there's any pressing issue, you can raise your hand and then the MC will alert me and I will answer your questions. Okay. Right. So let's start with an activity. All right. Now I have shared the reading passage with Dr. Dini, and you can refer to that, but I have it on the slide as well. But you might want to look at these questions first, and you need to answer these questions. You can type it in the chat. All right. So the first one is, after reading the text, what do you think is the level of students' proficiency if we use that text in the classroom? All right. Are you all familiar with the CEFR scale? If you are, okay, if you are aware of the scale, that is from A1 to C2, which would you, how would you rate this passage, right? If it's meant for low, it should be A1 and A2. Moderate would be B1, B2, and advanced would be C1, C2. So at which level? All right. Okay, let's start. I'm not sure if it's too small. That's why I had shared this, the passage with your lecturer. Okay, take a minute, read it. Okay, are you done reading? Okay, so in your opinion, what should the student's proficiency level be to understand this text easily? Would it be low, moderate, or advanced? And on a CFR scale, how would you rate this passage? All right. Can we have a look at the chat? A1. Anyone wants to share? Anyone else that's B2? Okay. Moderate, A1 or B2? Okay. So it's like ranging from low to intermediate. That would be the level. Okay, I can see that most of you say it's like moderate, right? Not very low though, all right? It's not that easy read for a person who's starting to learn, but moderate, yeah. Okay, I got the idea. All right, we'll come back to this, and I want you to keep this in mind, all right? As to whatever we're going to look through this 1 hour, 1 hour plus, how would you rate it, and how to actually make sure that it is exactly at that point? All right. Okay, so let's go further to look at the approaches. All right. Now there are two approaches that we can use. One is the product approach, and the other is the process approach. So product approach, basically, you have something that is already there to see, and students would be able to figure out based on what is being shown. Whereas the process approach, you focus more on the processes leading towards understanding. All right. Okay, that is put in a very simple way. So the first one, product approach here, says that meaning exists in the text itself. So you can use the text to teach, right? And they can they can actually identify, they can recognize linguistic signals like the alphabets, the syllables that they are aware of, and then putting them together for word level, and then moving on to sentence level. All right. Whereas a top-down processing approach would be more of a process approach where you use their prior knowledge to comprehend what is written in the text. So you use their existing knowledge. You start off with creating a situation in which they can relate to, and then moving into the text itself. So it's more like a schema-based pre-reading activities to activate your schemata, and then constructing that new knowledge, or amending to whatever you have already learned. You add on that information, so you extend it in as you read the text, right? Do you need more explanation on this? Are we okay? All right, this is just to give you an overview of what kind of approaches we have in teaching reading. Okay, right. The schema theory, when you talk about the process approach just now, we talked about the schema-based pre-reading activities. All right. The schema theory, according to Noonan, he said that the past experiences actually create that mental framework to make sense of new experiences. Now, normally we do that, right? Whatever we see for the first time or we hear words for the first time, we try to make connections to what we already know. So then we realize, no, I have never heard of this before. And if it is not something that is familiar, we try to create that familiarity. We try to link it to something that we already know. All right. Now, that is basically the teacher's job, because students wouldn't know, especially young learners, they wouldn't know how to make that connection, right? They that's all they know. They have, let's say, if you're teaching 10-year-olds, 10-year-olds will only have 10 years of experience in life. So how much would they have learned in that 10 years? Not just what you learn in the classroom, but outside the classroom, your life experiences and so on. So when you try to connect, there's nothing much that you can connect to because there's only 10 years of experience. If you teach children who are about 18 years old, now they have 8 extra years of experience. So now they have more ideas that they can connect to. All right. So, which means as a teacher, when we have understood this theory, how we make connections, it also relates to your maturity, to the students' maturity. So, if we know that they are younger learners, it means that you have to make that connections for them. You have to show them the connections. All right. That would be helpful for the students, especially younger learners, because they don't have that much of maturity and experiences. So same goes for Anderson. He also said the same thing. Activating or constructing a schema provides a coherent explanation of objects and events mentioned in a discourse. So this is something that we have to take heed as a teacher. Why? Because if we know that is how students learn, then we have to make sure we show that in a very clear manner so that they are not confused or they do not misunderstand words or meaning of ideas. All right. So you need to make sure that whatever you teach, it is clear so that they can make connections from then onwards. All right. They can see how the new ideas make sense. And then when they learn new things later on, they will be able to connect things together. All right. Because you have taught them how to make that connection. So they will start doing it on their own. Okay, so these are some of the reading strategies. So I understand there's a mixture of students here. Some already have learned this and some have not. So the ones who have already learned, I'm sure you know what it is, what these strategies are. But those of you who are new at it, what do you think a preview would be like? Understanding context, okay. So if we go back to our text just now, all right, what would be a preview? What would you look at? All right, title would be a good way of getting the preview. Right, first sentence, yes. Okay, so title, the first sentence would be the best way to get an overview of whatever that is coming on. So learning to live in a new city, so you would have an idea. This person is probably going to talk about the experience of moving to a new city, all right? Or what happened in a new city. Okay, next is predict. Right, from that title, would you be able to predict the content? Yes, okay. So from there, it's very clear that it is related very much to the title. The title can actually tell you what is going to come on next. All right. Therefore, your title has to be very clear. All right. Sometimes we read articles where the titles are very catchy and it's very indirect. All right. Now, when it is indirect and catchy, it attracts the attention of the reader, but it may mislead you. All right. You don't really know exactly what is coming on next. All right. So when we teach, we have to sort of adjust to the needs of the students. All right. So the title has to be really representative of your text, because if it is just a catchy title, of course it's fun, it's nice to read, but it doesn't help you to predict the content. Then it becomes a mystery. All right, now the whole idea here is why do we need to teach reading strategies in the first place? Why do we need to teach them reading comprehension? What do you think is the reason for teaching reading skills? Right? What's the reason for teaching reading skills in the first place? Is it just to read, to understand about something? Okay, great. Receptive skill, yes. To read efficiently. What do you mean by reading efficiently? How do you relate reading to real life? Okay, great. Arena, you said that reading is an important part of our lives. From work, school, and even daily life, it's important for us to have good reading skill. That is very, very true, right? But what kind of materials do we read most of the time? Okay. What kind of materials do we read? School materials, news, fiction, storybooks, news. Okay. And where do you read the news from? Social media. Okay, most of it from social media platforms, internet, ads. Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyone still buys the newspaper to read? On special occasions, okay. Yes. All right. So now that we know this is the situation, right? When we don't, you don't have like hard copy, and you actually use reading materials from your social media and so on. All right. Now think about the titles that the social media actually provides you. Are they long? Are they clear? Or are they really short that makes you want to read because you can't really understand from the title? Or is the title really clear? The titles on social media, are they really clear? But does it make you want to read? Okay. Now, if the title is clear, most of the time it would make it easier for you to decide whether you want to read it or not, right? If the titles are not clear, sometimes, yes, of course, if it is catchy and it's engaging, you may add on to that curiosity, people will want to read. But at the same time, people who are busy might not have that interest in reading something that is not really clear. All right, unless they know that it's an important point, even if the title is not very clear, they would want to read it because they want to know more. All right, so that prediction actually comes in together with your title as well, because from the title you can actually predict the content, and if it is catchy, it makes you more curious to know what exactly is written. All right, and if you have a passage like the one I showed just now, so many words in that slide, right? Actually, it's only about 300 words. When you skim through, let me get that page. Okay. When you skim through, all right, where is this student from? Where is Maria from? A small town in East Java. Okay, great. All right. Now, you can actually skim through very quickly to see where she's from, where is she moving to, where has she moved to. Okay. And what is her difficulty in Surabaya? Okay, so when you skim through, you can actually find out a lot of information. Now, we can actually look for information by skimming through, looking at the first sentence of every paragraph. All right, let's look at the first sentence. Moving to a new city can be both exciting and uh, challenging. All right, next one is at first Maria felt a little lost. So my question was, what was a problem? What was challenging? So you probably would look at the second paragraph. And then one day, in the third paragraph, it starts with one day Maria decided she needed to take action. So this is a solution, the road to solution, right? And the fourth paragraph says these small changes help Maria feel more settled. So can you see that all these first sentences actually help us to realize what the content is? All right, it makes it easier for us to understand the text, especially if you are new in new to the language, all right? You're learning and you only have a very limited set of vocabulary. How are you going to understand the whole passage? It may look so simple, it may be short, fairly short, but it can be very challenging for people who don't understand simple words like transport. Transport may be a word that all of us know, but it can be a bit challenging for the students. All right. Okay. So skimming is one of the strategies. All right. And then you have scanning. So scanning would be a bit more detailed, like you zoom into a particular point. All right. I think I mixed the questions just now. Some was skimming, and then the other one was scanning. All right. And then guessing from context. So you can actually use the text using one word, like, for example, transport. All right. If you were to teach the word transport, the first time the word transport appears is in the second paragraph. Okay. You can see the second sentence, the public transport system. Okay. If you're not sure of what transport is, you probably have to read a bit more. All right. And then you have some Indonesian language used in between, all right, like angkot. Probably that would be helpful in understanding what is meant by transport. But still, that connection is not very clear for a person who doesn't know the word transport. All right. If you know, of course, you can make connections. If you don't know, you have to try and look for words that are familiar to you. All right. So, first language would be a familiar thing, right? That could help them to understand what is the meaning of that word transport. Okay. Can you see how connections are made? Remember the earlier part I talked about the schema theory? All right. So this is part of your schema theory. You can make use of what they already know and make connections to new words, new ideas. All right. It's not like they don't know what is the meaning of transport. It's just that the word is in English and they don't know the meaning in English. All right. If you translated that word into Bahasa Indonesia, I'm sure they will know. Even if you translate it to Javanese language, they would also be able to understand immediately. All right. Because it's written in English, it's a little challenging for them. Right. So this is how you make connections. You help them make connections so that they can understand what is going on. Okay. Right. So guessing from context, some familiar words, something that you already had done or taught them in the earlier lessons can be used to make connections with what is new in today's lesson. All right. And then paraphrasing. If sentences are difficult to understand, you probably have to help them paraphrase. So you paraphrase and you tell them, or you can ask them to paraphrase, especially if it is a little higher level. You don't need to do the paraphrasing, you ask them to do the paraphrasing. For the younger students, the teacher will probably have to assist in paraphrasing. So you can say it in a different way and make them understand. All right. Now, this is what we would do in a normal classroom. Right. And our topic today is actually about introducing AI, right? So, how is AI? What kind of role does AI or even digital tools? No need to go that far to AI, all right? Might be a bit far fetched. But how can we use these tools to help us do these strategies? We already can do it. So, why do we need to incorporate digital tools? All right. Now, as we go on, you'll realize why. Okay. So I'm going to keep that as a mystery for you to figure out at the end. Okay. So, what are the 3 stages of reading lesson? Any idea? When you teach reading, like what would be the first stage, second, and the third stage of a lesson?
May I answer?
Yes, sure, sure.
I think it's pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. Is it?
Okay, yes, it is. Okay, great. So we have pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. Okay, so the main part would be the while reading. That's where you get the text and you're supposed to read it. Now, prior to having the text, you need to prepare your students for the text, right? So what kind of things do we need to prepare them with? Right, to stimulate interest in the topic, to motivate students by providing a reason for reading, because sometimes some students, they just don't like to read because reading can be a bit monotonous. You have to read it, especially if you have to read it silently, you're on your own, all right, it can be a bit draggy. So it's good to stimulate that interest, make them more curious, make them want to read, all right. And some students, they just don't like to read. Okay, they prefer watching videos, someone reading it out to them instead of them reading the articles or the text. All right. So if you are in that mode, um, then you can imagine how you're going to handle your students. All right, because the younger generation today, with all the tools that we have, to read, especially if you're reading a long text and it is in a Word document, you can just turn on the uh, what was that? The dictator, all right, and that uh, AI voice or whatever voice you want to call it will read it for you. So you don't actually have to read text anymore. You can do some other work and let the AI read it for you aloud so you can hear. All right. So it's more of a listening activity than reading itself, right? Now, that is where we are heading to today. Whether we like it or not, that is where we are heading to. All right. Now, that is also dangerous because what if the voice has misread it because there's not much intonation involved? All right. So when it is read without those emotions, you and the intonation, you might get the wrong idea. Okay, where words are connected to each other and what it means. So that can be a bit misleading. All right. So this is one of the reasons why we insist that students learn reading skills because it will help them in future. All right. For example, if someone is going to, if you're buying a property, for example, and you need to sign a contract, all right, and reading is so important, reading skill, because you will know what is written in that contract, all right? You don't want to be cheated. If you allow someone to read it to you, they might read with all those omitting all those important things. What if they read it to you, omitting important points? Then you will be misled, right? You wouldn't get the actual picture of what the contract says. So this is something that we have to remind the students. Of course, at a younger age, it doesn't make sense. But as you grow older, it makes sense because that reading skill is such an important skill. We don't want students to be cheated at the end of the day. All right. So that is why we insist they must learn how to read, make connections, and understand what they read. Okay. Right. That is in terms of contract. And of course, in everyday life, whatever you're doing, you might have some kind of forms that you read with some very fine print that you might have missed out. So those are the things that we have to encourage students to read. So having said all these reasons, the reading skills are such an important skill in real life. All right. So to manage this in your classroom, because as it is, they're so much into social media, and even you use the social media a lot more than physical reading materials. Okay. So how do we make them interested? All right, that creating that interest is very important. So the pre-reading stage is a very important stage, because if they shut off, if they don't find it interesting, your activity is not great, then they would not be interested in reading the article. So that while reading, reaching to the next stage while reading would not be meaningful anymore. All right. So we have to think, as a teacher, we have to think of an activity that is so interesting and fun that students will want to read. Okay. Of course, it's easily said. All right. But we have to try. Now, I'm going to suggest a few things. Yes. Is there a question? Okay. Right. So if you, if you can think of some interesting activities to do so for the pre-reading, then of course your while reading will be helpful. It would help in the while reading. Okay. And what I'm going to explain afterwards is we're going to look at some activities for pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading, and then we will do the activities afterwards. Okay. Right. So for while reading is mainly to clarify the content, vocabulary, to help students understand the writer's purpose and the structure of the text. Right. I believe Ms. Dini has taught you all about expository text, right? Like how to look at the structure of the text, the purpose of the writer. So that's actually a good way to make students understand. All right. So that part of that reading is so important for the students. Okay. Right. So this is while reading. And then you have the post reading, that is to consolidate and reflect upon what has been read. All right. Sometimes they read for the sake of reading, but understanding is only 20%. And then when it comes to post reading, they are not able to do that activity because they cannot put things together. They cannot make that connection. All right. So what I want to also remind you is that the younger the students are, the more help they need in making connections. All right. So you have to create activities which will help them make that connection. All right. Otherwise, they will be lost. All right. We are talking about students who are from an EFL background where outside the classroom, the language is so minimal. All right. Even posters you read, everything is not in the target language. It's not in English. So what is going to happen outside the classroom? There's not much support. So all the more, the support has to be really good in the classroom. All right. If you don't provide that kind of support, then the students are going to be lost. Okay. Right. So always think of the students. How would they benefit from this lesson? All right. It's also to relate the text to their own knowledge and interests or views and provide a stimulus for other language activities. So reading can be connected to speaking, can be connected to listening skills, or even writing. Right. So once they have finished reading, they can think of a particular activity. You can think of some content that they can relate to and write about it, reflect on it, talk about it. So these are the 3 stages that we have in a reading lesson: the pre, the while, and the post reading. All right. So I hope this section has benefited those who have not come to this point yet. Okay, those of you who already have learned this, I think it's more like refreshing your minds of what you had learned. Okay, so let's look at what kind of things you can do. For pre-reading, you can do predicting, semantic mapping, all right, words and map it to the meaning, reconcile reading. While reading, you can have skimming, scanning, note-taking, guessing, analyzing vocabulary that can be done. All right. Now, how do we do this for the while reading section, we can ask questions. All right. The questions are the ones that will decide what kind of activity it will be referring to. Do they need to skim to get the answer? Do they need to scan to get the answer? All right. That is how it would be. Okay. And the post reading, would refer to questions, mind mapping, summarizing. Now, these are not exhaustive. These are not the only things that you can do. These are some of the things you can do. All right. Okay, so for pre-reading, you can do activities that can set a goal or purpose. All right, you activate their prior knowledge, predict. You can increase the text interest by personal connection. All right, new vocabulary. All right, so going back to that text that I shared with you just now. All right, moving to living in a new city. All right, how would you activate their prior knowledge? Can you suggest? You can turn on your mic or you can type in the chat. What kind of activity can we do to activate prior knowledge in a pre-reading? Okay, you can ask questions about the topic. So because it is about moving to a new place, right? So you can ask them, it doesn't have to be a big city. You can ask them, so how many of you have moved from a different place, right? How many of you have moved from a small town? You don't have to even say small town, but from one town to another town, right? And then you can see, you can ask them questions like, was it difficult when you came here? All right. What was difficult? What was different from your previous town to this town that you're living in? All right. So this is how we would make small talk. Um, we will try to engage the students in the topic itself, right? What else can we ask other than um, if they have moved from one town to another? Maybe you can give suggestions like a few types of towns and cities, right? It doesn't have to be a big city. It can be a bigger town, for example, right? So you can give examples like if you are looking at Surabaya, instead of Surabaya, you can mention another place like Jakarta. Yes, you can ask them the difference between old and new town, which place they prefer, what's the most exciting part about moving to. All right, between Malang and Surabaya, yes. You're in Malang, right? Okay, the culture shock that you would face. Okay, right, great. So there's so many questions that you can actually ask and the topics that you can make them relate themselves to what they're going to read. All right. So you can make them predict as well. So you can ask them like, okay, if you have moved from Malang to Surabaya, imagine if you are moving from Malang to Jakarta, how would it be? Would it be very, very different? their experiences in adapting to new places, okay, the difficulty in adapting to this new place. All right. Yeah, definitely there is some kind of challenges that they will face, right? So you can list down all those challenges. What kind of challenges would you face when you move to a new town? So one is difficult to adapt, culture shock, different. What do you mean by different? Then they would be able to tell you more things like, uh, are there more public transport in bigger cities as compared to the smaller towns? If you were to compare Malang and Jakarta, would there be any difference in their transportation, like how to move around? All right. The city culture, yes. Okay, the lifestyle. So you can actually get them to talk about it. Now, instead of just talking verbally, you can use pictures. All right, pictures of scenes from the city. Okay, yes, food price. You can also show pictures of food and how much it costs. It cost in Malang, and the same food cost in uh, Jakarta, for example. All right, so that would also cause this discussion. All right, so when they start talking about these things, it becomes interesting, engaging. Right? And you just don't depend on verbal input. You try to give them pictures, especially for children who have never been away from the town. Right? For example, you're teaching in Malang and children have never been outside Malang. All right? So they wouldn't have any idea what lifestyle in a city would be like. Right? Just don't have any idea. So what can we do to include them as well in the class activities is by showing them pictures. So you provide them with these resources so that they can get themselves engaged in the activity. All right. Otherwise, they'll be left behind, isn't it? If they don't know how, they can't imagine, they can't visualize what it's like. All right. So as teachers, we have to always think of everyone. How would everyone benefit from your lesson? Okay, so this while reading can be in graphic organizer mode, you can monitor the text, you can fix up strategies, meaning of unknown words, question the author, like what is he trying to tell us, making inferences, all right? So you need to identify from the text how would you manage the text? All right, like making inferences. Which part can you ask them to make inferences? Okay, so you look at the text and then you try to figure out how to. Now, it would be nice at this point, don't you think it would be nice if we can create that text by doing all these things? All right, because if you use an existing text like what I showed you just now, okay, this one, which part are you going to refer to for making inference? So you have to read, you have to tear this passage apart, you have to figure out like which one can you use, which part can you use for making inferences. All right. Now, it would have been easier if you wrote this article and you knew exactly in paragraph 3 there is something that you can make inferences to. All right. That would be great, isn't it? But most of the time, we do depend on what is in existence. So we take what is available and then we turn it into a reading lesson. Okay. So this is something that we are going to face in terms of um, the challenges in coming up with materials for teaching. Okay. So while teaching the reading material itself, you can create situations in which you ask questions, they need to read and answer those questions, and so on. Okay, and finally, the post reading section, you can ask them for the main idea, describing main ideas and not summarizing it, but just talking about the main idea. Summarizing is another activity, all right? Reflection, ask them to reflect. What if you were given a job in Singapore and you have to move and live in Singapore? How would the lifestyle in Singapore be? All right, so they need to think about what would be different and challenging and so on, right? You can ask them more questions, make them think critically, all right? And you can also use some form of application. Ask them to apply this in real life. Okay, so they should be able to do this better because they have read about it in the while reading section. Okay, now all these pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading, they must be interconnected. Right? If they are interconnected, then only it will make sense. You cannot do a pre-reading in one section and then move to while reading a passage that is slightly different from what you did in pre-reading. They have to be connected. So for example, if you pre-teach the vocabulary in pre-reading, that vocabulary must be words that will appear in your while reading text. Okay, they shouldn't be words outside the text. They all must be in the text, right? And then from there, you take out what you think is important that you would like them to reflect on, or you want them to summarize, or you want them to think about some related idea and come up with a discussion or something, all right? So you can create that post-reading activity. They must be based on what they have read in the while. Okay, any questions up to here? Are we okay so far? All right, let's move on to the to the main part of today's talk. Oh God, I've already gone through 1 hour. Okay, right. If you do have any questions, do write in the chat, okay? And now and then I'll be checking, and if there's any important questions to be answered, I will answer you definitely. Okay, so let's look at the digital reading landscape. Now, it is similar to Malaysia, just that because today's talk is mainly focused on the Indonesian group, so I'm using Indonesia as an example. And even the article just now, it was sort of geared to an Indonesian setting. Okay, right. So these are things that we do every day. All right. Just now I asked you, where do you read? And most of you said that it is social media platforms. Basically, that those are the things that you read daily. Your input probably comes from Instagram, where else? And other social media, probably TikToks. Okay. And for your classwork, do you read ebooks or do you actually borrow books from the library? Not so much for library books. Ebooks, okay. And nowadays, ebooks, you have a lot of free ebooks too, right? And you can actually find them online. So that's not going to be a difficult thing to do. Okay, so the next thing is the digital reading landscape also looks into AI tools support simplification, glossaries, and reading prompts. Now, I know a lot of students I used to have an Indonesian student in my master's class, and he found it a little difficult to understand journal articles, right? So because they were highly academic in nature and it was very technical. So this was for a assessment class. So what he did was every time I asked to read, he would use Google Translate and translate the entire article, read it in Bahasa Indonesia, and then try to make sense of it. And then after that, he would make the notes or answer questions. All right. Now, of course, that is a simple way of doing things, but we know very well Google Translate is not 100% correct. Would you agree? Okay. So definitely you cannot trust 100%. All right. So how do we help ourselves? So you have to also play a role in terms of this translation, right? But for a student who doesn't know the language, okay, if they use Google Translate, they're going to depend on it 100%, isn't it? Because there's no one else to ask. All right. If they're still in your class, they can come and ask you. But if they are not in your class anymore, who are they going to ask? So they have to help themselves. And many people actually have an app. They have an app that can actually translate different languages. So you can choose your language, put in the input, and then you get the answer. You can even input it verbally. All right. You record someone who's talking, and then you can see what they are saying. Right. So we have AI tools, actually, tools that help to simplify these reading materials. All right. That's actually a plus point or a negative point. Is it a good thing or not? Good or bad? Depends how you use it. What does it depend on? Say you don't know the language, all right, and you have some reading material, and you just scan it, and then the app will tell you what it is. Good or not? Can be both, good or bad. All right. On the fast lane, when you need to get something uh, comprehended, you need to understand it, right? So you use an app and you get the gist of it. Okay, basically, you have an idea. That would be good, isn't it? Because immediately you have got some idea. And then you make connections to what you already know. It makes sense. Okay, when it doesn't make sense, then you probably will read it again, read the translated part, then you might not trust it. Okay, so you might find other apps. Okay, if you find what would be other apps you can use? One would be translating apps, right? Other than that, what else can you use? Of course, fully trusting the app is also not a very good mode. Okay, but what else can you do? Imagine if you are a person who's learning a language where no one else speaks that language around you, no one else speaks the language, right? You use the app and you're still confused. Okay, and you don't really trust it because if you didn't understand, most probably it didn't translate correctly. Okay, so what would you do? Throw away that article and read something else? Now, we need to understand this because these are problems that your students will also be facing. It's not only you. All right? Okay, someone who is an expert in English. Okay, right. So where are these people? Yes, ask someone who is online. Okay, through an online community, that's great. Okay, so this is something that we also have to teach students. All right. This online community is there to help the students. It's not to create problems for you as a teacher, but it's actually assisting you as a teacher. I think we have to look at it as we are part of that community. All right. The moment you see yourself as part of that community, you will have no issues trusting each other. All right. Of course, people may have misunderstood things. They wouldn't have understood the same way as you did, or you have. And it is fine. Okay, because those are all part and parcel of life. Sometimes you have the good part and sometimes not. So there's always a mixture, and you need to know as a teacher how to filter all these things for your students. Right? Okay, and the other thing is the common context, mixed proficiency, reliance on mobile phones, PDF-based materials. So these things are actually what we see in real life. All right. And it's not just in Indonesia. I think in Malaysia is also the same. Around the Asian countries is the same. Right. We have a bigger issue than other countries because we have a first language. All right. When we have a first language, the interference of the first language is always there. You cannot run away from it. All right. So that's another factor that comes in. All right. And then in many schools, you will also notice that kids are taught English, not in English, but in their first language. All right. Why? Because it's easy. It's easier done that way. It's easy to translate a word or the whole text and tell them what it is and move on. All right. You can't sit and talk about that one thing for the rest of the day. You need to do a lot more. So the only way is by creating this situation where you kind of depend on the translation. So when students come from primary school where they have been taught in their first language most of the time, when they come to secondary school, they cannot meet the challenges because things are getting more challenging. All right, they are a bit more difficult, higher level, and what more if the lower level is not well established, right? So they are going to face this problem. Okay, so this is something that we see in all Asian countries, not just in Indonesia, but everywhere else. Okay, so let's go to the main part. What are the roles of the digital tools and AI in terms of teaching reading? All right. Now, you can actually have for pre-reading AI generated visuals for schema activation. All right. Now, all the while, it's more like searching for articles, books that you can read and extract information from there to help yourself in coming up with activities. That was the older way of doing things. That was like 5 years ago, probably, or maybe even more. But today, you don't need to go that far. Okay. What you need to do is to reflect. What is it that I want my students to do? All right. If I want them to talk about something, I need to activate their schemata. All right. If I want to activate their schema, what kind of way would be best? All right. So just now I talked to you about you can ask questions, right, for your pre-reading about the different towns, what there is in each town, and so on. Then the other thing I also mentioned was you can give them pictures so that they can talk about it. All right. They can help themselves to talk about it. So when you do that, all right, you don't have to worry too much. Okay. Why? Because the pictures, you don't need to even search now. Even before this, we always go to images. We type out what we want and then go to images and then we choose. And that seems so easy. But today you don't even have to do that. In the same page, if, for example, if you're using ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT to actually create your visuals for you. All right. Have you tried creating visuals? Yeah, great. Okay. If you're not sure, all right, what you can do is you go to ChatGPT, upload your photograph, your current photograph, and ask it to create a photo when you were 3 years old. All right. It'll give you a very cute picture. All right. So actually, this AI can actually do a lot more. Okay. But be careful because it can get into the wrong hands. Okay. Right. So that is one of the things that you can do. You can do AI guided comprehension strategies, vocabulary scaffolding via quizzes, Google Lens. All right. Do you use Google Lens? Or have you used Google Lens? Great, great. You have beautiful, smart kids, Dr. Dini. And instant results from digital quizzes. So you can have quizzes and then you can show them the results straight away. Like if you do Kahoot, you can actually see the answers appearing, and that becomes very interesting and exciting for students. Now, that can be part of the digital tools that you can use or even AI related tools. All right. Now, these are not the only things. You can do a lot more with more things. All right. Every day there are new sites, there are new apps. We can't keep up with everything there are. Okay. But you can help yourself with these tools. Right. Now, remember earlier I talked about the 3 stages in teaching reading. All right. So we are going to look at how to use this AI or digital tools to help us in our teaching. All right. For example, like if you look into communicative language teaching, you can do collaborative annotation. For example, Google Docs. All right. You can have questions, comprehension questions in your Google Docs, and then students can in groups, they can actually answer, or as a class, they can type in their answers. So last time we used to use, we also have other apps like Padlet, where you can actually work together. You can collaborate there. You can show things in real time. All right. Jambots. What else? Do you use anything else? Where you work together as a group, like you can actually uh, type together or write. Have you used them? I'm sure you have, right? Canva, yes. Yep. Okay. Right. So you can think of these new uh, places or websites, if you want, or apps where it can help you to create this platform for you, right? So that it can make it easier for your students to work around it. Now, that's another issue. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm sure you have faced it too, because I think in most countries we do face it. In the bigger towns, in schools that have, not even bigger towns, in schools that have very good parent teacher associations, they have very good governing offices, all right, where digital input is seen as very important. You would find a lot of facilities are provided in those schools. All right. But if you see in schools that are a little bit poorer, in a poverty struck area, all right, you would find that the digital tools are not, the facilities are not there, right? So if you don't have a projector in the class, or you don't take them to a computer lab, if you don't have a computer lab, don't talk about language lab, that is even a higher level, right? Simple things like a computer lab or a projector in a classroom, then it's a little difficult to do this kind of communicative language teaching, because they need to have their own gadgets to use it, or at least the gadgets must be provided. All right. In Indonesian schools, are students allowed to bring phones to school? They're not allowed to bring phones. Okay, same in Malaysia, we don't allow students to bring phones to school, except for international schools. In most of the international and private schools, they are allowed to bring. All right, some private schools you can't bring, but most of it, the international schools you can bring. So that makes things a little easier. When they have their own gadgets, you can actually do a lot more activities like this. If you don't, then you have to provide them with the space. So if you provide them with the space, like your computer lab, you must have enough for everyone to use it. So you can group them like 3 people to one computer. That's also good, because at least they have some exposure rather than no exposure at all. All right, because this is going to be the future. All right, whether we like it or not, it is there. We have to embrace it. We might not use it all the time, but knowing is actually good. And it is actually very useful for the teachers. If not for the students to do collaborative work, at least teachers can work together. So you may be staying, let's say, if you are posted to a school in a very rural area and you have friends who are in the city, you can actually discuss and do things together and prepare lessons together. And that is also another way of helping each other. So it doesn't mean that, whatever we learn today, it's meant for a reading class, right? But you can actually use it for your own development, your professional development. Okay, right. Next is the task-based learning. So you give a task, and in which they will have to work around a reading passage or something. And that reading passage can be generated by AI. All right. Process oriented reading, AI generated guiding questions. So you may find an article from the newspaper or some website, and then you can feed it to an AI platform and ask the AI to actually help you generate questions. So that's also possible. All right, now I'm going to share with you 5 of the websites, but this is not like the only 5. There are many others, but this is like more often used. All right, so you can look at this later on. I will share the slides with your lecturer so you can have a look at all these websites as well. Okay, so the first one is Monsha, in which reading comprehension question generator, right, and passage generator. You can set the task, and then it will give you the best passage that you need to use for your class, right? And yeah, that is how you would do it. Now, actually, how do you come up with the reading passage? It all depends on how you prompt the website or that tool. Okay, your prompt is very important, because when it says you can customize by topic, grade level, reading complexity. Now, the grade level is a subjective thing, right? So you have to state very clearly it is a grade level in Indonesia. Don't just put a B1 level in an English class, because a B1 level in English class can be a bit misleading, right? So you need to say which country or which area, right? And that way, the AI can actually analyze based on the location what kind of complexity will be involved. Okay. Right. Next one is easy peasy. This is another tool which will also be able to generate for you the reading passage, right? You can use Quizzes AI Reading Passage Generator. That's also another tool that, all the while Quizzes was just coming up with questions, and then now they have extended. Just like in Canva, you used to have only presentations, and then now you have so many things that it can do, right? Okay, and it can also supply you with questions, handouts, all right, different types of questions. You can choose from there, like what kind of questions you want to do. That's also possible. Okay, another one is Cathowen, all right. This is where you have questions created. It can also tell you the level of the text. Beethoven can also tell you what level, whether it is intermediate or low proficient. It's meant for low proficiency or advanced students, right? Okay, so this one is more like you have the question, you have the text, and then you provide the app with the text, and then it will come up with questions for you. Okay, and the kind of questions you set, you can dictate whether you want lots or HOTS, which level you want it to be. All right, it can be HOTS for low proficiency. So HOTS for low proficiency would be something that they are capable of doing. So don't get it wrong, yeah? It doesn't mean that if you are low proficiency, you cannot do HOTS. You can make them think, but within their level. Don't give them complicated vocabulary. Okay, so we'll look at it shortly, how you can decide what level your vocabulary would be. This is another one, iWeaver, all right, where you can upload the articles and then ask it to help you come up with the questions. Okay, and it also has a differentiation function where you can create an article, similar article for low proficiency or high proficiency students, all right, using the same one. Okay, and this is Voyant Tools. This is not really a quiz generator, but it's more like looking at your word frequency, all right, more like discourse analysis, in terms of your text, what kind of text it is. Okay, so you can actually do a lot more on word level, phrase level activities here. Okay, now I'm going to show you this one, Text Inspector. And before that, do you have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a while. Do you have any questions?
I think we have a question from Erina Rahma.
Okay. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so my name is Erina, and I would
Okay.
like to ask two questions related to the previous topic of stages of teaching reading, pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. So let's say we are teaching a class and there are many students in a class, right? Not just one. So what if the students do not have the same prior knowledge? For example, if we were going to give them a text about solar system or a dinosaur, what if some students already know several things about the topic while the others don't? How should we continue the lesson? And for the second questions, is there any tips on how to create a proper prompt to ask to AI so that we can get the best answer from the AI. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you for your questions. I think that's really good. The first one is about if students have different levels of understanding, their prior knowledge is different. I think you can find out in the first part of the class, like how many people actually are aware of the topic. For example, solar system, do they really know the solar system that's in existence? Are they able to talk about it? And then maybe have some kind of group activity where you group people who know, all right? They will be the leader of every group. And then you place the others randomly, and then you can set a discussion question in which the peer who knows it will be able to help them in terms of the content. So that way they educate each other, they help each other. All right. So that would be very, very helpful. It's collaborative work, and students are okay to learn from their friends. All right. So the activity must be very interactive as well, so that it's two-way, like they can ask questions and they'll get answers from the leader. So that is one way. Now, what if the same kind of situation, if students have no prior knowledge to relate to? I wouldn't say none. Usually you would have, but it's just that it might not be obvious or you cannot recall immediately. So, in such a situation, the teacher has to play a bigger role. You don't give the answers for sure, but what you will do is you'll provide them with the materials. So, for example, solar system, if let's say nobody in the class can relate to it, then you probably have to give some reading materials like pictures, some kind of visuals so that they can relate to it. So, these things will be done in the first part of the lesson for the pre reading, where they will have to read and help each other understand what is in that text. So, an activity can be like coming up with a mind map or something to show their understanding of the content. Right? The mind map can also be done in collaborative work where the leader knows something. But at the end of it, everyone has to show you the mind map. So you can see how much of information each group is giving you based on if, let's say, the leader is someone who knows more, they can provide with proper information. And how correct is that information? Sometimes they know, but it might be misleading, right? And then what if nobody knows? Then again, your reading materials, your teaching materials, whatever you have given them for each group to refer to, can they extract the correct things and put it in a mind map? Then maybe you do a gallery walk, ask them to place it on the wall, and you can see the difference between each group. I hope that would answer your question. Okay. Of course, this is not the only way. You can always modify from what I have said, come up with more creative ideas and all, because that would be something that would be helpful for students. Learning from their peers definitely would be helpful. It is more effective than learning from the teacher. You can say the same things, it wouldn't really stick in the head. But when a friend tells you, it makes more sense, right? Yeah, so that is one. The other was about the prompt, right? Okay, prompting is very important. I think I explained just now, like if you want to create an article, all right, you have to prompt it correctly. Now, if you remember the article that I shared with you all just now, when I ask you what level is that article and so on about living in another city, all right. This article was actually generated by ChatGPT. All right. And how did I prompt it? I said, I want a 300 word, approximately 300 word essay. Sorry, not essay, 300 word text, reading text for an intermediate B1 level group. All right. And then it gave me because ChatGPT is my good friend, so it knows me very well, and it gave me an article on Kuala Lumpur. So I had to change it because it recognizes me as the teacher, right? So it gave me an article like moving to from a small town to Kuala Lumpur. Now I'm talking to people in Indonesia. I cannot, you won't be able to relate to it, right? So I changed it. I said, can you please refine that article with reference to an Indonesian setting? And that's what it gave me. I thought it will give me on Jakarta, but it gave me Surabaya. All right. So it's about the prompt, how refined, how specific you are. You have to actually give all that information, the details, the profiling, before you can expect it to give you the right answer. And the first answer may not be the best. Like what it gave me, it wasn't the best. All right. So that's why I had to refine it by stating that I needed something related to Indonesia. And that's what it gave me. All right. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how this article can be used. Don't have much time, right? Okay. I was going to show you on Text Inspector. Okay. I can show you in my screen. Oops. Sorry, I can't seem to. Okay, hang on. Let me. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking for the right one. Okay. Right. Can you see my text inspector? Okay. You can actually get this for free, and you can use it for 400 words if you have registered the free account. Okay. Of course, if you pay for it, you can use more. Right. I'm just showing you something that you can do this for free and easily. Okay, this is Text Inspector. I think if you just Google Text Inspector, you will get this page. Okay. Now, what you need to do is to type in your text, right? So I have my text just now, which I created from ChatGPT. You can use other, the ones that I shared with you, all right? You can try that out. So I'm going to paste this here. Right. Can you see my screen? Okay, right. So here I have put in my text, all right? And then I'll just go into analyze, all right? So now it's analyzing, and then it gives me the statistics summary of the statistics. Okay, there are 21 sentences, and what's the average sentence length is about 14 words, 14.8, 14 to 15 words. Okay. And then what else? All right, this is it. You can use all this information if you're doing any research for readability scores and so on. All right. Now we are going to look at what is the level of this text. Now remember the first question I asked you, who is it referring to? This text, is it meant for moderate, low, moderate, or advanced students? So it is supposed to be intermediate because that is my prompt in ChatGPT. But when I look at this words, okay, I can go to EVP. EVP is English Vocabulary Profile. All right. So this is a summary of the words that appeared in that text. Can you see it? All right. Now, most of the words here are A1 level, 109 words, sorry. And then you have 34, which are A2, 25 B1, and 7 B2. So most of you said that it was between A2 and B1. You were actually right because that is where that level is. All right. But actually, it is a B2 level. Why? Because we already have touched the B2 level words. All right. So it could be low B2 students who can actually read this text and understand, and anyone below that should be able to do this. All right. But minus those 7 words, they should be able to read the others. So, which means even a low moderate student should be able to read this text. That's how we can interpret from here. All right. Now we look further. Okay. We look at this statistics. You can actually see all the words which is tagged as A1 to B2. Right? The dark words, I think, are a little higher, and also we have that unlisted. So unlisted would be words like angkot is unlisted. All right? Because they don't have that in the list. Okay? So if you want to look at it in a clearer way, A1, you have all the words, so you can see from the words. All right? All these words. These are all simple words which you use every day. All right? Next is, let's look at B2 words. Supposed to be 7, right? So that's the list. Okay? So these are not too difficult words, therefore, it probably be low B2. All right? Or a high B1, because they are not too difficult. Adjustment community, I think students, if they are B1, they should be able to understand. Maybe 1 or 2 may not know the words. Here you have 25 words, all right? And you can see words like public transport is actually a B1. So it's not an easy word. Okay, easy words would be A1 level. And look at the words like bigger, both, change, conversation, different, difficult, enjoy. These are simple words. All right. Now we can also see, overall, you can actually find out like what levels it would be, and you can figure out from the words. All right. Now I want you to try out. First of all, can you tell me the word jungle and forest? Which one is lower level? Jungle and forest. Which is an easier word? Jungle is an easier word. Okay, so let me show you. All right. Now I'm just typing the two words. Okay, and I'm going to analyze this. Let's see what happens. All right. So we have one at A1, one at A2, and one at B1. All right. So which one do you think is the easier word would be and. All right. Next is forest. And then only is jungle. That means jungle is more difficult than forest. Do you know why? Okay, because I can walk into a big city and say, it's a jungle out here. What does that mean? What does it mean when I say, it's a jungle out here? I'm standing in the middle of a city. Let's say I go to Jakarta, I stand in the middle of the city and I say that. What does that mean? Does it mean it has a lot of trees? Chaotic, yes. A lot of buildings. All right. But can I say it's a forest out here? Does it have the same meaning? Does the word jungle and forest, can it be interchanged? Like standing in the middle of a city and I say, it's a forest out here. Yeah. Okay, you can't say that because forest, calmer, yes, but it's referring more to trees, the flora and fauna. All right, a forest. A jungle can be seen from a connotative manner. All right, because it can be used in a connotative manner, it has a higher level. All right, in terms of its the proficiency level, all right, the word jungle, because it has many different meanings and it depends on the context, it is definitely not an A2 level. All right, forest is an A2 level because it's very concrete. You can see it, you can show pictures and they can describe it as a forest. Now you can also say flora and fauna, you can say jungle. That's also fine. But jungle has many different context that it can be used in, but forest cannot be used in any other context. All right. So this is how we decide what is the level of that word. Okay. So why is this important? Because if you are teaching weak students, you better check here. Are they able to understand the words? So once you have analyzed it and you know what are the B1 words, let's say your students are really beginner students and you have a lot of B1 words, then you better change the words. Maybe look for a synonym, which is A2. You can check it here. All right. And then from here, you can make those changes in the text, change the words so that it's simpler. All right. If you're not sure, you can use any of the AI platforms like ChatGPT or Perplexity. Ask it, or even DeepSeek. You can ask it to create an article, a text for you. And then from that text, you can use Text Inspector to double check that the level of the word is appropriate to your student's level. All right. So I really hope this hands-on thing, this is just one of the many, many, many websites, but this is what we use frequently, all right, to decide on reading text meant for school students. So if you are planning to teach, you're doing this for your micro teaching, I think you should use these tools because these tools can help you decide what is the best level for your students. All right. And then based on that article, once your article is done, you can then go to any of those websites that I shared with you just now to create questions. All right. And then from there, it would be easier for you to conduct your class. Okay. Let me just finish off where I left. Okay, so this is the website for Tax Inspector. It's free. All right, for the first 400. So if your tax is very long, I would suggest start early so that you can you can put in a few times and then get the right level for your students, and then go to the earlier websites and see which one can help you develop proper questions. Your prompting must be correct. All right, your prompt would be more like, I would like to have 6 questions, in which 2 questions should be lots of, you can even tell exactly you want understanding or you want remembering type of questions. All right, those prompts must be very specific. And then profile your students in the beginning. What kind of students you have, what level is their proficiency, and how do you want your questions to be. All right, then you feed in your text. Now the text you have already checked using Text Inspector and all that. Put that into your whatever platform you want to check your questions, and then it will give you the appropriate questions. All right, don't forget to ask for the answer, because sometimes it gives you questions and the answer is wrong. All right, so you have to make sure everything is well prepared, because you need to know what the questions would be like, and then how would you explain the answer, which part of the text is that answer. Sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's not. So you have to be prepared for all that. Okay? Right. So, where am I? All right. So designing reading materials for AI, basically, you can generate level text for mixed proficiency. So you can actually tell your AI what kind of level you would like that material to be. Now, the same article, I can actually put it into ChatGPT again and ask it for an advanced level and for a low level. And then I would cross-check with Text Inspector to make sure that the words are equivalent to that level. All right. Once I'm happy with that, if I'm not, I would actually use synonyms of those words to make it easier or more challenging. And then only I would create questions. All right. Now, what is our role? We are not dependent on the AI. Okay. We can actually do this on our own, but it's just that it will take a lot of time. Right. Now, what happens is that because now time is shortened for us, we are not spending so much time in creating materials. We can think of appropriate prompts. All right. You can have HOTS questions for low proficiency students, so that, which is not a problem, right? And that can be very helpful in your class. Okay, make it more engaging, interesting, so that everyone can actually benefit from your lessons. All right. Now, the assessment part, you can actually do it using auto grading. All right. Once you have the questions, you can feed into any of those websites where you can have auto grading. So you can have like a question paper, like you can do a Kahoot, quizzes, any kind of thing that would be interesting for the students. And then you can explain the answers. Right. Okay, I actually wanted you to do this, but I don't think we have time. So maybe I'll take some questions and then you can try this on your own based on that text that I had shared. I think Dr. Dini has shared in the chat as well in the beginning. All right, you can take that and then try and create 2 other levels, 2 other proficiency level using the AI. You can try any of those websites that I shared with you, and then maybe share with your friends and see which is the best one to use. Okay, I wish we had more time that we could do this part. Okay, right. So finally, pedagogy over technology. This is something that we have to remember. Technology is just a tool. Okay, we are not going to grow too dependent on it. To a certain extent, if you're dependent on your phone, you can't live without your phone. Soon you can't live without that technology, actually. Right? So it's not a bad thing. It's just that it's going to be part and parcel of us. So if it's going to be with us, we better know how to use it properly. All right. Now you want to create any kind of pre-reading activities, you tell the prompt, you write the prompt correctly. All right. Please suggest. You can put in, you can attach that reading comprehension passage. All right. And then you can ask it, please be nice to your AI. It loves all the P's and Q's. All right. So you say, please provide me with with an activity for pre-reading stage. All right. My students are mixed, intermediate, and high. Intermediate and high. Intermediate and advanced students. All right. And then you can profile them, like what is their background, first language, and then you ask it to come up with 2 hots and 3 lots. All right, question. So it will give you an activity for pre-reading. At the same time, it will give you some questions together. All right, so you can customize it according to your needs. But how do you say it? It's the most important thing. Your prompting must be correct. It must be as specific as possible. Okay. And then don't trust it 100%. Always cross check with some other websites. Try 2 different apps, and then you will see some similarity then. Okay. Of course, it will never be the same, but you can decide which is the best for your class. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I will take questions from now.
Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture, Dr. Geethanjali. Unfortunately, due to the time limitation, I think we can only accept one question, if that's okay.
Yeah,
It
sure.
could be either from the chat box or if someone wanted to unmute their microphone.
I think everyone is ready to go for the next class. I guess there are no questions.
Anyone? Any question? One question only though.
Yes, there's someone who raised the hand.
We have Brenda, please.
Hello, excuse me. May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the question is, I think it's quite straightforward. I'm asking because reading comprehension and media literacy, critical thinking is one of the things that I am quite passionate about, especially in an age where it is very fast paced. And I think what I gathered from the lecture itself is that there are ways to make teaching more efficient and more thorough with AI technology. Now, since us teachers are trying to use AI wisely, how do we also transfer that kind of mindset to our students? Because nowadays, I'm sure that we have access to all these tools that make things more instant, and it's not the same as it was before. How do we inspire like critical thinking, media literacy, and the desire for studying reading comprehension in a world that is like very AI, like in a world that is becoming more and more tied to AI? I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you for your question. Actually, this is a very good question. Like, we use it because we want to create teaching materials, right? So that's actually helpful. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's right or wrong. There's no right or wrong here because we are just using this to assist us in our teaching. So I think it's just a helpful tool. But in terms of your students, I think you have to be very careful. As much as we have a lot of things online and we create these links and all that for your teaching, but I think when it comes to your students themselves, you have to make sure that they don't they are not led with questions or activities online. All right, if they are doing something online, it has to be in a controlled way, because if you leave them to do it freely, there's a possibility they will refer to ChatGPT and get all your answers, and that's it. That's a shortcut. So one of the things you can do is make sure no phones around. All right, you take them to a computer lab where it's very controlled activity. They can't turn on any other sites, that kind of situation, then it's possible. All right, because even if it can be the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy kind of questions, everything can be found using an AI. You can answer it without having to think. Right? It's all about thinking about your prompt rather than thinking of the content. So yeah. So that's the only way. If the teacher controls it, you can control the thinking skills. Okay.
I think that's all. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you once again, Dr. Geethanjali Narayanan, for the thoughtful lecture today, and thank you to all participants for your attention and active participations. In the lecture, we can conclude that Dr. Geethanjali explained how effective reading instruction in EFL classrooms relies on both bottom-up and top-down processes and on activating learners' background knowledge to support understanding. She also describes the roles of the pre-reading stage, the while reading stage, and the post-reading stage, and showed how each stage helps guide learners toward clearer comprehension. She also introduced a range of digital and AI tools that can generate reading text, create differentiated tasks, and even support assessment. Throughout the session, she stressed that technology should always follow sound pedagogical principles and serve the learning goals of the classroom. Before closing, everyone, please fill in the attendance list provided in the chat box. And I will take documentation first. Please turn on the camera for all participants. I'll take it 3 times. On my mark, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, this session has now come to an end. We hope this session has contributed to a deeper understanding of how the AI-enhanced reading pedagogy can empower future EFL educators to design a more meaningful, engaging, and data-informed learning experience for their students. That's all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and good day, everyone.
Thank you so much.